Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me for the latest edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook. On this week's show, we continue our federal candidate interviews for the riding of Cape Breton-Canso as I sit down with NDP candidate Jana Reddick. And we'll also take a look at some items that came up this week at the Port Hawkesbury Town Council table. But we begin with a quick peek back at the provincial election and specifically about 3 local MLAs who were appointed to the first cabinet of new Premier Tim Houston. The MLA for Port Hawkesbury and for the entire riding of Inverness, Alan McMaster, is now the Deputy Premier. He is also the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Labour Relations, and the Minister in charge of the Office of Gaelic Affairs. As well, Antigonish MLA Michelle Thompson is the new Minister of Health, and the new MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie, Greg Morrow, a former news anchor for 101.5 The Hawk, is also in the cabinet. He's the Minister of Agriculture. So what does the Mayor of Port Hawkesbury, Brenda Chisholm-Beaton, think about all of these local appointees? I asked her this question following the recent Town Council meeting in Port Hawkesbury. Here's what Mayor Chisholm-Beaton had to say.
Well, we are extremely proud of Alan McMaster and his recent appointments to the Office of Deputy Premier. Having our MLA have such distinguished portfolios, I think makes all of us proud, not just in the town of Port Hawkesbury, but also all across Inverness County as well. So we did send off congratulations to our MLA, and we are very much looking forward to working with him and his new adventures in a new government here in the province. So we don't, what that looks like, time will tell, but we are really excited actually to sit down and have a conversation with Alan around our town's priorities, and also to look at having regional meetings with the other mayors and wardens and the other MLAs of the Strait area to talk about our Strait regional priorities and what that kind of growth looks like.
This is the first time since 1998 that all 4 Strait Area ridings have been represented by government MLAs. And the Mayor of Port Hawkesbury feels that could go a long way to helping out with Strait Area priority issues, including those for Port Hawkesbury itself.
It's going to be a matter of making sure that some of the priorities that are set by the government is priorities that we can align with as a town to move forward, with regard to some of our priorities that we already have set as council. So right now, with regard to our town priorities, is certainly around housing, economic development, waterfront development, port development, well as improving our active transportation and green spaces, and so certainly around medical health care, doctor recruitment, medical health care recruitment. So these are really important files to the town, and just making sure that we're able to work with our MLAs here in the Strait. I think it's going to be extremely important for our future to see how this current term with the new government plays out.
And in the meantime, Mayor Chisholm-Beaton is also looking forward to working with the new MLA for Richmond, her former Port Hawkesbury Town Council colleague, Trevor Boudreau.
Trevor certainly has a great perspective and has always employed a regional lens in terms of the work he did at our council table. And I think that will definitely translate into the work he does as an MLA for Richmond County. I think he looks at development from a regional and provincial standpoint. So I think it's really exciting that he's made the move from town councillor to MLA. And I certainly will continue to communicate with Trevor and work with him on regional projects and work together as a Strait region. I think it's quite exciting, and we're certainly, I'm sure, I can't speak for all of our elected council members, but we're certainly proud of Trevor because he was a big part of the council for a long time, and we wish him well in his new adventures as an MLA. Let's leave provincial politics and federal politics behind for a little bit and look at the municipal scene, specifically some items that came up this week at the Port Hawkesbury Town Council table.
Two taxi license applications came to the council table during their regular monthly meeting. Now, that in itself might not seem all that interesting, but one of the taxi license applications came from Strait Area Transit. You see, the transit cooperative usually has a wheelchair-accessible bus making the rounds in the town and in the surrounding areas. However, the lift on that bus needs to be repaired. So, in the meantime, Strait Area Transit is applying to the Port Hawkesbury Town Council to be able to get a taxi license for a temporary vehicle that can provide wheelchair-accessible service across Port Hawkesbury. However, they also don't want to step on the toes of people who already operate cabs in the Port Hawkesbury area. Here's how Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton summed up the situation after Tuesday night's council session in Port Hawkesbury.
The specific point of the motion that was made tonight was certainly around having a very specific taxi license that designates or allows Strait Area Transit to transport persons who are differently abled and that may have mobility challenges that the current, private sector companies are unable to provide at this point. Because it is super important that everybody has access to whether it's shopping, doctor's appointments, any kind of mobility needs where they need to get from point A to B in their daily lives. Certainly it's great to have Strait Area Transit willing to step up to meet this need. So we do appreciate their efforts, and it's really a win-win because we want to have we want to improve our accessibility here in town. Whether no matter how people choose to move, whether they're walking or in their wheelchairs as pedestrians, or whether they're getting from point A to point B. Via Strait Area Transit or a taxi service.
Because one Port Hawkesbury Town Councillor was absent from last Tuesday's meeting, and because another declared a conflict of interest over the issue and didn't participate in the vote, only two councillors were voting on whether Strait Area Transit should be accepted for its taxi license. They were Hughie McDougall and Mark McIver. However, both McDougall and McIver made it clear that they would only proceed with the taxi license application if it was specifically for wheelchair accessible services that are not offered by any other taxi company in the town. But the two remaining councillors voted in favor of the taxi license application, and Strait Area Transit is expected to launch its new temporary wheelchair accessible vehicle service in the coming days. And now it's time for the latest federal election candidate interview for the riding of Cape Breton-Canso. Jana Reddick lives in Glace Bay with her partner Ashley and her son Cale. She's a career practitioner there, and she feels that this experience, combined with recent health issues that she's undergone, fits well into her desire to see the NDP platform help out people in Cape Breton Island and northeastern Nova Scotia, but also all the way across the country. I spoke to Jana Reddick from her office in Glace Bay via Zoom. Here's our conversation right now. Jana, thank you so much for giving me some time on Telile 24/7 today.
I'm really excited to be here, and I'm glad to be doing all these interviews and hoping to get people to know me a little bit better. So thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. You're very welcome. And I want to begin quickly by asking you how the campaign is going. We're down to 2 weeks before the actual vote. We're in the home stretch. How do you feel things have gone for you throughout this big ride?
It's going pretty well. I have been doing a lot of kind of getting out and talking to people. Door to door has kind of been hard for me because I'm going to have to get a hip replacement at the end of this month or early October, hopefully. So I haven't been able to hit as many doorsteps as I wanted to, but I'm hoping to change that in the next 2 weeks and try to just power through the pain and get out there. But I think it's going well. So.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Hopefully that will be able to go well for you over the final 2 weeks. Now, you decided to run this past spring, and you brought up that you need a hip replacement, but I understand that your own health situation played a role in you choosing to run for federal politics and to run for the NDP as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so back in I want to say it was 2018. Yeah, 2018. no, 2019. So it was 2019. I had found a lump. I had a lump in my breast at the time. I had it checked a few times and they had told me that it was benign. And then I ended up finding a lump in my armpit. So I had to go to a walk-in clinic because I didn't have a family doctor at the time. And anyway, he ordered an ultrasound and things like that. And it turned out that I had breast cancer. So it had spread to my lymph nodes. So at the time it was around stage 3, maybe stage 2, but it was stage 3 eventually. And so I ended up having to go through all the treatment. I did around 9 rounds of chemo, 30 radiation treatments, and a mastectomy where I lost my left breast and I don't even know how many lymph nodes. I'm going to say 30 something. And then, it was good for a while. And then I ended up getting spine metastasis just to one vertebrae on my spine. So now I'm kind of living with stage 4, but I have a wonderful team at the Cape Breton Cancer Center here. And I find that I only had to go up to Halifax twice, once for my mastectomy and another for my, I had to get 2 rounds of radiation that were specifically used in a radiation machine that's up in Halifax that I think we're trying to get down here, but it's pretty expensive. So it's hard for them to kind of get the funding. But because of that and getting sick and meeting people in the chemo room that would have to be, going back to work after chemo or had work the next day, or were telling me that they had to pay out of pocket for the meds that cost $1,500, $2,000 because it's not covered under their plan. But, even the fact that I had to go to a walk-in clinic instead of having somebody that I would have been able to go to beforehand to kind of check out the lump. I ended up getting a family doctor. The first time I met her was when I got the news that she had to tell me that I had breast cancer. So that was the very first time I met her. So, because of all those things, it really opened my eyes to how, ruthless and terrible the system is here, the healthcare system. And that really inspired me to decide, if I want to see change, I think that I have to be the one to try and make it. So I want to try and get it better so nobody has to go through the rigmarole that I did to get diagnosed or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And just picking up on that, Jana, you've talked about the cost of the medication that you've needed just to be able to take care of some of these things.
Yep.
And that connects to the NDP's federal plan for a national pharmacare program. It has been promised by the Trudeau Liberals. It hasn't taken shape. So do you feel like your own personal experience in that regard made you a natural fit for not only what the NDP is pledging, but also what your leader, Jagmeet Singh, has identified as a priority for Canadians?
Yeah, well, I think the NDP has always been ahead of the times a little bit with the belief of always taking care of people. And, it's about that we're all, equal and everybody should have a fair chance and nobody should be able to buy, money shouldn't distinguish what your treatment is or if you're allowed to survive. And so because the NDP has that pharmacare right in the plan or right in the commitments, right in their all of their things, that I think that's definitely what attracted me. I always enjoyed, Jagmeet and his amazingness with his beliefs and how he truly just wants to fight for everybody. But I think pharmacare is such an issue for so many people. People will say, you get healthcare. Well, a lot of jobs don't give you the coverage to cover a lot of the drugs. And then if you do, then you're paying out of your pay that, if you're making $800 every 2 weeks, well, taking health plan off that, you're left with, you wouldn't even be able to pay rent and eat. So that's why I kind of really think that the NDP are the best party to implement this, because, I was talking to, I was interviewed recently, and somebody told me that the Liberals had put it out there that they would do, low income that's who they would give pharmacare for. But there's already programs that exist for low income people and pharmacare, right? The problem is that people that are, stuck in the middle, that they have a job, but the job isn't getting them through to payday. So they're getting, they're in debt after all of the things that go on, or they run out of money by the Monday before payday, and they can't afford to get all of the, drugs they need. And that's why pharmacare has to be something that's considered for all of us, because right now pharmaceutical companies are just able to write what they want for it, and that's just what we have to pay. And I think that if there's drugs out there that can save somebody's life, there should never be a price tag on that. And that's why that matters so much to me.
And I imagine, as you've mentioned, you're hearing that on the doorstep as you go from door to door in this campaign, and as you're speaking to people in different areas. What are some of the other key issues that you're hearing on a regular basis, and how do you feel that electing you and also electing more New Democrats would help answer some of these questions that some of the people here have?
Really, I've heard about affordability with whether it's with renting, because how expensive renting can be for people here, or even buying a house. People can't afford to buy houses here now because people are coming in and offering double what people are able to list it as. So now not only are we paying astronomically through through our noses for rent, we can't even buy a house because a down payment isn't something that you can save for in the first place, let alone being outbid by people who don't even live in Cape Breton and are buying land here because, whether it's the pandemic it was one of the safest places, or whatever the view is on why people are buying here. But I think that is something that I've heard a lot of. Another thing that I've heard a lot of is, that people are really annoyed and tired here in Cape Breton, and I think all across Nova Scotia, with the fact that this election was in 2 weeks already, while we were still in the Nova Scotia election, So people are tired and they're annoyed, and they feel like their voice never, or their vote never matters. And so I think really a lot of times I've gone to doorsteps and people have been saying, I'm exhausted, nothing's going to change anyway. Why should I vote? And I can't say I blame them. It's really discouraging when you feel like your voice is never being heard and nobody ever stands up for you. And so for me, that's something that really matters, because I know that here in Cape Breton, we are a lot, and not just in Cape Breton, Canso too, and up in Guysborough and around that area. I don't, by no means do I want to leave them out. I feel like really a lot of times they kind of get left behind, because the focus is on Cape Breton so often that nobody kind of fights for them even harder. So I think this entire riding suffers from the fact that a lot of times people who are kind of well off or, you know, are really politicians and not like, you know, people that have been in the job force or the workforce, or, you know, like I've worked in nonprofits for my whole life, or I've worked with youth for the government, or I did access for families who had their children taken away from them, and I would supervise their visits. And I'm not well off. I'm by no means rich. This is definitely a poor campaign. It's all donations here. I can't afford to fund my campaign or anything along those lines. But I think a lot of people can understand that because they have those struggles, and they know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, or even paycheck to payday loan, or paycheck to overaging their credit cards. So I think people around here need to have somebody that represents them in Parliament, that understands what it's like to not have that doctor, to not have somebody fighting for you, to not have money, that can't afford healthcare because they're working at a job they hate for minimum wage, peanuts, and, you know, they can't save, they can't do anything to make their lives better because they're stuck in this rut. And I think somebody like that, somebody that understands people here, have to or should be who's running or who represents us here in Ottawa, because I think it's very easy to not understand what people go through here on a daily basis if you've never experienced poverty or having to choose to pay the electric bill or buy groceries, you know? So I think that's what matters to a lot of people, and those people should be able to have somebody in like representing this riding that can honestly say, you know, I've been there, I've been in the dirt with you guys, I know what it's like to struggle, and I want to fight for all the things that you want because we deserve it here. And there should be no reason for us to have to be second class to other parts.
Jana, I wanted to devote the next part of the interview to past, present, and future in terms of politics here in Cape Breton, Guysborough County, and Antigonish County, which take in the riding of Cape Breton-Canso. This is a place that has elected New Democrats in the past. Father Andy Hogan was the Member of Parliament for Cape Breton, the Sydneys, for many years in the 70s. Michelle Dockrell winning a new version of the riding, Brador Cape Breton, in the late 90s, defeating a powerful Liberal cabinet minister, David Dingwall, in the process. He, of course, now the president of CBU. And there have been some strong female candidates for the NDP in recent years, including the former mayor of Mulgrave, Marnie Simmons, and Port Hawkesbury community activist Shirley Hardery. What does it mean to you to know that those names have had some success in this area and may have planted NDP seeds that could blossom for you and for future NDP candidates here?
Well, I think really the NDP was always, for a long time, it was the working man's party, the worker party, you know, fighting with unions and like helping them out, and you know, not fighting against, but fighting for or with them, is what I mean to say. And, you know, I think that really a lot of people here, here in Cape Breton, and, you know, like you said, Guysborough, Antigonish County, things like that, I think, or places like that, I believe that the NDP belief is still there, that they fight for the people, they fight for the people that work, they fight for the rights of the rights of, you know, everyday people, or they fought for being able to have Labor Day or things like that. Just, they fight for us. And I think because of that, the NDP roots are here because like I said, we all know that. And it comes back to that struggle that the NDP is the one that'll help you with the struggle. And I think because of that, that's why the NDP seeds are still there and being sown. And, I definitely think, especially with women running so much more often, it made me feel more comfortable being able to put myself out there and, having not just women, but seeing people that weren't just, for lack of a better word, career politicians going into it, or seeing people that actually want to make a difference and get away from the status quo is why I think the NDP still has a little bit of power here in this riding, because really, if we were able to, for some reason, I think that the government or different parties have kind of told us that, going into debt and the country going into debt, and because of all the things that the NDP want to do with money and all those things like that, that's going to affect us in our everyday lives. And that's terrible for us. And you don't want to vote for the NDP because they'll spend too much money. Well, I think it very much showed us during the pandemic that helping people out and giving them money and like what they needed to survive is what should be done and what needs to be done. And the NDP are the ones that fought for that. And that, that gross domestic product or whatever it is, isn't our responsibility to take care of. It's the government's, and the government should be taking care of our lives. And really, that's why I think that, that's why the NDP still lives here in this riding. And I think really the Liberals have held it for so long because, the NDP has fluctuated, and the Liberals have always, they have more money than the NDP, and they have this like access. And so I think that's why they've been more so successful, and why the NDP hasn't really been able to get very far. But I think I'm hoping that we're on a swing of the pendulum that isn't going to go loop back to conservative. I'm hoping that it'll kind of loop again, and we can just go directly into what we hope for our lives, and that's the NDP and what they want.
Well, Jana, let's look ahead to the present and the future, because while the recent provincial election has shown us that polling isn't always accurate, the recent polling in terms of this federal election has shown us that we could well be returning to another minority government situation, whether that's Liberal or Conservative. The NDP, of course, has played some key roles in minority governments of the past 15 years, not just Mr. Trudeau, but also Mr. Harper and Paul Martin back in the early 2000s. So what kind of sense do you get about what kind of an impact, if more NDP candidates are elected, such as yourself, that it could have not only on the new parliament going in, but also on the future of Canada?
Oh, I think the NDP is always a great kind of opposition party to have. I think that a lot of times minority governments are kind of exactly what the people want, or really what is best for the country, because people that they keep the leading party accountable. They make sure that they are asking for what Canadians want. And I think obviously the NDP showed how powerful they can be in this in this role during a pandemic, because you look at CERB. Well, Trudeau wanted to, and the Liberals, they wanted CERB to be $1,000. Well, $1,000 isn't getting anybody through a month, or through a 2-week period or a month or whatever it was. Like, it's not happening, and they wanted to give a 10% wage subsidy, and the NDP fought for it to be 75%. And because of that minority power, those things were able to be given and were able to change, because the leading party has no choice but to play ball. So in this situation, if there is a minority government, the NDP does gather more seats and is able to kind of sway one way or another. I think obviously that's beneficial, not just for the, all the people in Parliament, but I think right across Canada, because like I said, this way there's more representation of what people actually want, instead of a ruling party that isn't going to listen to people that don't align with their views, or they just have the power and nobody can stop them, so that they're just can do whatever they want, right? And I think that's why minority governments are really quite extremely powerful and good for the country, in my opinion.
So the last question I have for you, Jana, is about representation. And if you are elected as the MP for Cape Breton-Canso on September 20th, you would not only be the first LGBTQI MP from this area, you'd also be the first half-Black candidate to win the seat for Cape Breton-Canso and for this part of Nova Scotia. And I want to ask you a bit about what that means to you, looking at your son, Cale, who you're raising with your partner, Ashley. What kind of impact do you think that would make, not just on him, but also on people in these communities and people outside of these communities, to be able to have that kind of representation for this area in Parliament?
It'd be wonderful for Cale to see, really, and all kinds of children. Cale is a wonderful little boy that he expresses himself and, he's only 10, he's turning 11, and he doesn't have to succumb to, the stereotypes that are put on little boys that make it so hard to be like little boys growing up in this world right now. And I think that if they're able to see that equality where anybody can run and anybody is able to kind of change the world in some way, I think that really it could get this next generation coming up, Cale and like his generation, it could make them believe that they can change the world too. And I always say that I think they're the ones that are really going to make the difference. I think, we're trying here, but I think that generation coming up is just going to be like, what were you guys doing? So, and really, as like you said, I'll be the first queer person of color in this riding. I think as a queer individual, I think obviously it's always wonderful to see a person living out loud and open in any type of career or public body or anything like that, because it sucks to this day. Children are still having trouble with coming out to their parents, or in some countries it's still you're still able to be thrown in jail or even killed if you're gay. And in my lifetime, I was able to see gay marriage get legalized, so that's just in my lifetime. So it's not even that long ago that I wouldn't have had the same rights as somebody that as a lot of my best friends or anything like that. And really, because I'm, my father's Black and my mother's white, I think that truly that knowing that I would have been illegitimate, I wouldn't have been worthwhile at one point in this world. And my parents weren't allowed to get married at some point. Because of that, because my dad and my mom, their marriage might not have been able to be a thing, I think being a person that has always has known that, you know, my existence wouldn't have been accepted, or my sexuality wasn't accepted, and all of those things. So I know what it's like to be left out, or that you have to hide things, or that that you really wouldn't have had the same rights, and you are a second-class citizen in this world. Because of that, I think really that is able to, it gives me the understanding of what a lot of people here in Cape Breton feel, you know, not just people of color, but really people that are living in poverty, and people that are always feel like the system is stacked against them. Because really in Cape Breton and in Guysborough and in Ganish County and Canso and all these things, so many of us live, like I said, paycheck to paycheck, or having to choose between the electric bill or the groceries or your phone bill, or being able to get your kids' school supplies or things like that. That makes you feel secondary. That lack of safety net that you have when you're unable to save money, or always be marked as, you know, even people that are struggling with addiction. All of these things society makes you feel like you don't matter, that this is, you know, you should just be grateful to be at the table. Just because you're at the table doesn't mean you should talk, but you should just be grateful to be here. And, you know, for me, I just decided enough is enough. And, you know, people have to fight. Somebody has to get up and be that first person to say, you know, I think there has to be more colored faces at this party. And I think there has to be gayer people at this party. And I think that trans people should run. And I think that former addicts should run. And all of these things, because that's what this country, that's what this community is made of, is people that struggle, and people that work hard, and people that are at the lowest points of their life, but still are able to crawl out of them. And somebody needs to be able to understand what that's like. And I do. And, you know, people don't get to see themselves on TV or represented. Like I said, I grew up where gay marriage was legalized. I grew up before, I was never able to see two girls kiss on a TV show or something like that, because that was so against societal norms. So it makes you feel like something's wrong with you. And it wasn't until I was able to see more representation of what I felt, or who I was in a community, and that I belong to a community, and that those things don't define me. They're a part of me, but they're not my definition. That made me feel as if I could be that voice, at the very least, that makes people realize that they are needed. And, you know, there's a population of Black people across this entire riding, and they've never seen somebody of their own race be able to be a part of this or help with this riding. And, you know, as a light-skinned Black person, I get certain privileges, and maybe one of my privileges is, or because of that privilege, I'm able to, not just maybe, I'm able to get certain things that people with darker skin and are Black wouldn't be able to. And that's despicable to say, but it's true because that's systemically what happens. But that's all the more reason that if I'm able to climb through a door, or, if I'm able to walk through it, well, then I'm opening a window and the rest of you are climbing in, because there's no person left behind. We all need that help, and we all need that security, and we need somebody who understands us and is fighting for all the things that we truly need in this riding, not just what our party tells us and not just what our donors tell us. And we need what matters to these people. And, like I said, people don't get out to vote because they don't believe that somebody's going to represent them, or it never changes. Well, I can promise you that if I was to be the person that gets in, I will be the person that is defending every single person and working for every person to try and make this place better and more sustainable, where your families can stay and be here, whether you're straight, gay, bi, trans, Black, white, Indigenous, anything at all. You should be able to live in your home and stay close to your family and friends and be able to build a life here where you can not just get by, not just survive, but be able to thrive here. And that's what I want to give this community, because, getting cancer was the thing that gave me a new lease on life. And it reminded me how amazing having a community that cares about you is, and how it can change how you feel about yourself. And I want to make this community feel like they have that person that's doing that for them.
And that's a good, positive, hopeful note on which to wrap up this interview, Jana. And I want to thank you very much for giving me some time here. I know it's a busy day for you at your office in Glace Bay, but we wish you the very best for your candidacy in Cape Breton-Canso. And Jana Reddick, thank you for joining me on Telile 24/7 today.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Pleasure to talk to you. Jana Reddick is the new Democratic candidate for the riding of Cape Breton-Canso, and we've been speaking to her from her office in Glace Bay. Stay tuned for more Telile 24/7 in just a moment. And speaking of the federal election, just a reminder that Telile Community Television will partner with the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce to host a federal candidates debate for Cape Breton-Canso. That takes place Friday, September the 10th at 6 p.m. at the Port Hawkesbury Civic Centre. We will have 3 of the 4 candidates for Cape Breton-Canso: Liberal Mike Kellaway, Conservative Fiona McLeod, and New Democrat Jana Reddick. We will be posting the entirety of the debate on Telile Community Television's YouTube channel in the days following the debate and all the way up to the September 20th federal election. And you can also view the debate on the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce Facebook page. Once again, Telile Community Television would like to thank the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce for partnering with us on this debate. And closer to home, if you stick around to the tail end of Telile 24/7, you'll get to see me play the Telile 24/7 Fast 5 game with NDP candidate Jana Reddick. Stay tuned for that, everybody. In October, Port Hawkesbury will celebrate the 1-year anniversary of introducing its green bin composting program for town residents. Or more specifically, it should be celebrating. However, this summer's intense heat and humidity have some wondering if the green card collection should continue the way it's been going for the past year. And it also has Town Council wondering if public works staff in Port Hawkesbury should be making the collections more frequently to avoid a sudden rash of insects around green bins that are left out for too long. Port Hawkesbury's regular garbage collection, which includes pickups from the compostable material left in green bins, while the system has run smoothly during the fall, winter, and spring, the heat and humidity that came with July and August resulted in a rash of insects collecting around many green bins, with one green bin owner in mid-August even threatening to leave the program entirely when he came out to find his bin covered in maggots. Town Councillor Jason O'Coin said that he had been receiving calls about the issue weeks earlier.
It was probably end of June, 1st of July when I got my first complaint about it.
During Tuesday night's council meeting in Port Hawkesbury, Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton admitted that she nearly vomited when shown some of the images of insect-infested green carts during a presentation on the issue by CAO Terry Doyle. At that same meeting, town councillors voted to investigate the possibility of providing money in their budgets for a more frequent pickup of compostable materials from green bins during the hot weather months and possibly at other times of the year. According to Mayor Chisholm-Beaton, it's all about listening to the residents and making sure their voices are heard during these difficult times.
We have had a few instances of citizens being, extremely frustrated with, some of the outcomes of having that, 2-week duration between pickups, as well as, we did have a record kind of around a bit of a heat wave in August, and that's primarily when I heard the majority of the complaints. There are some strategies around minimizing some of the challenges with the current model that we're using now, but I think it would be probably best to look at how can we manage our discussions during our budget deliberations so that we can improve that user experience, because at the end of the day, I think it's very important that the town of Port Hawkesbury has the majority, if not all of our residents participating in the Green Card program, because at the end of the day, it's about diverting that waste in a way that is better for our environment and leaves a better footprint on our environment as a town. So we, again, sometimes that means that you have to meet in the middle and make amendments and look at better strategies around improving user experience, as well as improving the number of citizens that are willing to participate in this program. So at the end of the day, I think council is very supportive in having those conversations. And we certainly hope that this time next summer, we're getting less pictures of the bugs that their name starts with M. So hopefully it'll be a huge improvement, and we'll make our green card users a lot happier and more satisfied with their experience.
Like the mayor said earlier, there's different ways you can minimize the pests. So I think some educational pieces are good as well, but council is definitely willing to listen to our residents and to try to help come up with a solution. I think within the council meeting tonight, I think it just goes to show the residents of Port Hawkesbury the town council is willing to make changes when it's necessary, and that we are here to listen to the citizens as well.
Right now, I'm standing at one of the longest-running athletic fields in Port Hawkesbury and in the entire Strait area, the Dan Willie MacDonald Memorial Ballpark. This is a place that has hosted many great baseball and softball games and tournaments over the years, and as a matter of fact, just over 5 years ago, it welcomed Grammy Award-winning pop singer Meghan Trainor for a free concert that attracted over 11,000 people to Port Hawkesbury. For those of you keeping score, that's nearly 4 times the population of the town. However, things went nearly disastrous when heavy rains blanketed the Dan Willie MacDonald Memorial Ballpark just prior to the Tier 2 Under 15A baseball provincials that were held in Port Hawkesbury over the Labor Day weekend. The host team, the Strait Area Sting, were preparing to welcome fellow teams from Oxford, Stewiacke, and Hammonds Plains. However, with heavy rains buffeting the Dan Willie MacDonald Memorial Ballpark on Thursday and well into Friday, tournament organizer and Port Hawkesbury Town Councillor Jason O'Coin wondered if he and his crew of volunteers and public works officials could get the field dried out in time for the official opening of the tournament on Friday afternoon.
I can confidently say Thursday evening we hand baled well over 1,200 meters of water off of the field. Friday morning, a group of volunteers were there bright and early. Public Works were moving soil in for us, and the rec department were there helping us spread soil and drag the field and line the field and prepare it and get everything dry. And I can honestly say, when I went to the field at 7:45 Thursday evening, I was ready to cancel the weekend.
However, despite this gloomy outlook, the 20 people working the field Thursday night and Friday morning, and the 40 others that were working as volunteers for the under-15 Tier 2A baseball provincials over the weekend, the tournament did indeed get underway on Friday afternoon as originally scheduled.
The work that went on was absolutely incredible. Nobody stopped, asked questions. Why are we doing this? Are you sure this is going to work? Everybody dug in and did their part, and it shows what Port Hawkesbury and Cape Breton is all about.
And as a result, the Strait Area Sting and their 3 visiting teams not only played the tournament in its entirety, but also showed visiting players and their families how a town the size of Port Hawkesbury is actually the perfect fit for a provincial sports tournament such as this one.
Well, there was well over 100 people there to watch the game, and it was really nice to see, and that wasn't including the teams. So we had over 100 spectators. On Saturday afternoon, I looked over by the old arena, and I seen the parking lot full. It kind of reminded me of a Junior B game 25 years ago. And the comment I heard most from all the teams was the quality of the field, how happy they were. But what really impressed me, and it doesn't surprise me one bit, was the comments from the accommodations where they were saying this. The staff was more than helpful. Accommodations were fantastic. They felt they got their money's worth. And they were really happy to come to a small community for provincials. And all 3 teams said the same thing to me, and it kind of made me look back at it and say, yeah, I see their point. Was they said they'd rather come to a small hub as opposed to a big hub. Because if there's theaters and there's big box stores, all the players go different directions. And it was really a family event here in Port Hawkesbury, and they really appreciated that.
And we're pleased to welcome back new Democratic candidate for Cape Breton-Canso, Jana Reddick, to play the Telile 24/7 Fast 5. There, yeah. Jana, I can see you're pumped already. You're ready to roll.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here we go. We'll get right into it. Coffee, tea, or neither?
Coffee.
Okay. You can binge watch one TV show after the campaign is over. You can watch it for a week. What is it?
Oh, The Office.
The Office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nicely done.
Yeah. It's just fantastic. I've probably watched it in my lifetime. I've rewatched that show too many times that I'm willing to admit, for sure. But yeah.
She'll be checking into Dunder Mifflin after the ballots are counted. So.
Oh yeah.
We're all set. All right. You can be one animal for one day. What is that animal?
An eagle. Yeah. Just want to
eagle.
soar. Yeah, an eagle. I just feel like, I can soar, fly, explore the whole world in the air. I think that, I'm super short too. So I'd like to be able to see what it's like for all you tall people out there. So
you were the first Cape Breton public official to say eagle for that question, and I'm surprised that more don't. So thank you for soaring with the eagles. Right on. Right. Favorite smell?
That's a good one. Cinnamon? Yeah, I think cinnamon, maybe. Yeah.
That's marvelous. And last question. I have seen this movie 5 times. I would gladly watch it 50 more times. What movie is that?
This is going to... Okay, I'm going to say Mean Girls. Yeah, and I know that obviously makes me sound, to some people, really, really young, and to other people, it makes me sound really, really old. So fine either way, but I can still probably repeat every word along with every character and have been able to since grade 8, and I could watch that for the rest of my life and be fine.
Somewhere Tina Fey and Lindsay Lohan are smiling right now, having heard you say that.
Oh, God, I hope so.
That's wonderful. See, that wasn't so hard. Thank you so much, Jana Reddick, for playing the Fast 5 with me.
Thanks. I had so much fun.
All right. That's marvelous. Jana Reddick is the new Democratic candidate for Cape Breton-Canso, and she is the latest contestant for the Telile 24/7 Fast 5. And that wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you for joining me, and a big thank you to our interview guest this week, NDP candidate for Cape Breton-Canso, Jana Reddick. And thanks to Port Hawkesbury Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton and Town Councillor Jason O'Coin for taking some questions from me following this week's Town Council meeting in Port Hawkesbury. If you have any comments or thoughts about what you've heard over the past hour, or if you'd like to suggest future guests or story ideas for Telile 24/7, I'd love to hear them. You can contact me directly. My phone number is 902-625-8863, and you can email me as well. My email address is adamjrcook, cook with an E, @gmail.com. You can contact Telile Community Television directly. The station phone number is 902-226-1928, and you can email using the address info@telile.tv. Don't forget to follow Telile on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our YouTube channel has every single episode of Telile 24/7, including this one, as well as the individual stories and interviews from every show, as well as our sister French program, Notre Côté. And if you'd like to get your Strait Area information in a podcast form, well, this is your lucky day, because the Telile 24/7 podcast is up and running at soundcloud.com/Telile. I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for joining me for Telile 24/7. I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye for now.